Welcome back. Today is Inauguration Day. Joe Biden will be sworn in at 12 p.m. noon. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump's term ending at noon. He leaves with the Dow Jones Industrial Average up better than 10,000 points since he took office, and a strong economy, a legacy on issues from border security to trade. Joining me right now is presidential historian Doug Wead. Doug, good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us. What do you think President Trump's legacy will be?
Oh, it's peace and prosperity. He's the first president in 40 years not to have started a war somewhere. And the economy, just stellar. 6 presidents sought energy independence. Trump got it. 3 presidents talked about prison reform. Obama for 8 years, George W. Bush for 8 years. Only Trump got it. 5 presidents talked about moving the embassy to Jerusalem, the Israeli embassy. Only Trump did it. This vaccine for COVID-19, that's perhaps the greatest public-private combined effort since the Manhattan Project. All the critics said he will never do it, and it would take 3 years to do it. He did it in 6 months. So he's going to have a wonderful legacy, whether his enemies like it or not.
Well, it's also a standout when you look at his treatment of China and certainly that tough stance. What else stands out to you about President Trump's term?
Yes, I interviewed him about China. He said to me, we're not going to be able to turn this around in my presidency. And he said, this was remarkable to me, we won't turn it around. I won't see it happen in my lifetime, but somebody has to start the process. And we'll start it. Yeah, he saw real politics. He saw the needs where they are. I think one of his great legacies eventually will be the return of 55 hostages. It got no attention in the media, but each one of those is a heartrending story. I was able to interview some of them. There was torture, there was isolation. They'd have been abandoned by their government for 8 years of Obama and years into George W. Bush. The American government said to their families, if you talk about your loved ones, it will hurt our efforts to free them because it increases their value and more hostages will be taken. Trump was appalled by that and immediately set out, project by project, one by one, a game plan to get those hostages back. That's a great legacy.
Yeah. That's a great point, and I'm glad you mentioned the media, because really the media has been unable to cover this president fairly. And so you're right, the media did not highlight many of his successes. John Hilsenrath, jump in here.
Yeah, well, I mean, a couple of things on the media. I mean, I think it goes both ways. I mean, I think there was a lot of supporters for the president, in certain areas in the right-wing media, certainly not in the left. I think that the coronavirus pandemic is kind of a two-sided legacy and kind of splits his presidency. So we lost 400,000 Americans. We had a devastating recession. The vaccine is a great accomplishment, but there was a terrible cost that came with it beforehand. What I wanted to ask Doug is, what about the riots on Capitol Hill last week, or a couple weeks ago? How does that fit into his legacy?
Yeah, that will hurt, and there's no question about that. I looked at Thomas Jefferson in 1800. He won, and he united the country. It was very bitterly divided. He said, we're all Republicans, we're all Federalists. The Republicans were the forerunners of the Democratic Party at that time. Jefferson even defended the people who were calling for the overthrow of the government. Compare that to censorship today.
All right, Doug, thanks very much for your insights. Doug Wead, we'll be right back.
My friends are calling me all the time and writing me and saying, you've disappeared from television. We can't find you. We don't see you anymore. This is the only way we've figured out how to beat the censors. If you subscribe to this channel, hit the subscribe button and then hit the bell, you'll get notification when I'm on TV. Otherwise, you won't get my Instagrams, my messages on Facebook. It's censorship. So I want to hear from you. I want you to be able to hear from me.